Good morning. Still, I can say good morning to you all. I'm Israeli. I'm going to talk in Hebrew. No, I'm going to talk in English. And because of that, and it's not my mother's language, I'm going to read from what I wrote. But before that, I think after listening and seeing Laura,
Yes.
we're all in a bit of state of shock. And the professionals, I heard we had psychologists here, right? We call that secondhand shock.
Yeah.
We all experience now secondhand shock. So afterwards, please take a walk, do whatever you need to, take it out from your system, and it will be with you. So thank you for listening to Laura, and we'll change the subject, okay? These are difficult times in Israel, and these are difficult times to be a Jew anywhere, I believe. I didn't know how much it is difficult to be a Jew overseas until I came here. And this experience, I think I will take with me back to Israel and linger on it later. But I wanted to thank you to stand with Israel. And I wanted to thank you being you and being proud of being a Jew. And from what I understand in the last few days being here, that's not so easy in these days. So, thank you again for standing with Israel while the rest of the world has gone completely mad and is undermining Israel's right to protect itself. I will talk about resilience from a different point of view and about Israel positive. Yes, we do positive things also. Positive contribution to the field of ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution in family conflicts. Another sentence about war in Israel. I think that in Israel one can say that war is part of our life. Only the severity of the cruelty changes. Yet we try to stay optimistic. We are a happy nation. We cherish life, and we have to be creative to survive, each in his own field. As an Israeli family lawyer, I had the honor to be part of a team that wrote a law which is considered innovative in an international level. Since it was implemented in 2016, this law has succeeded in reducing adverse litigation. Litigation, for whom was not a lawyer, litigation is taking a file or a lawsuit or a motion to court, okay? Advocating in court. That's litigation. So since it was implemented, litigation in family conflict in Israel reduced by 50%. In doing so, this law contributes to the personal resilience of the public and ultimately strengthen the social national resilience. Before me, you were asked what's resilience. Okay, so I'm interacting with you. That's what I choose to show you. We have different kind of resilience, okay? So I'm gonna talk about individual resilience, and it's the ability to cope with crisis, okay? And to continue and function after enduring the crisis. As a family lawyer who encourage people to resolve conflicts in alternative ways, I've dealt quite a bit with resilience and thought a lot about it as the concept, what it means for me and as a person and as a professional. There are three types of resilience, right? I'm checking that I'm correct. I'm right. Individual, community, and national, also known as social resilience. I will talk a bit about individual resilience and family ties in the context of peaceful conflict resolution of family conflicts. I will refer to resilience, as you can see now, as the individual ability to successfully deal with difficult event or the ability to recover from a disaster as quickly as possible and return to normal functioning, whatever your normal is, okay? Everyone in his own pace of normality, whatever it is. We believe, I believe, I think you believe also, that each and every one of us has the potential to deal with stress and crisis. Although each person has his own unique coping style, we all can overcome. A supportive family is an essential element in our ability to deal with pressures and to make the difference between survival and resilience. Healthy family ties provide a sense of belonging and create the basis for optimal coping with crisis. On the other hand, studies have found that separation and divorce crises can be devastating to family relationships, especially if when litigation takes place. Hence, the state has the incentive to strengthen the resilience of the citizens by helping family members deal with crisis and minimize legal litigation in family disputes. And before I go to the next slide, I want to say something about the pictures. I combined new pictures to this presentation in honor of you. The pictures are of Israel in different places, and if you can see the name underneath, this is the Gaza border in 2003. There's a soldier standing there. All the pictures were taken by Gilad Ben-Ari, which is a photographer who was kind enough to give me the permission to use them, but I have to give him the credit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I go on. This is the Tel Aviv beach, very near where I live. Okay, resilience and divorce. An Israeli study published in 2009 identified three profiles of children of divorced parents: resilience, survival, and vulnerability. This study was based on personal interviews of Israeli secular Jewish young adults, aged 20 to 25, whose parents divorced during their childhood and were asked about their perception of their life, past, present, and future. The most important difference among the profiles was the relationship between the participants and their parents and their perception of ongoing parental responsibility. Resilient participants in this study presented an awareness of a close, meaningful, and supportive relationship with their custodial parent, and usually a fair to meaningful relationship with the other parent or with another adult. Those participants gave their parents' divorce an interpretation of a positive change in their lives, which contribute to their personal development without denying the existence of emotional pain and disturbing experience associated with it. I would like to emphasize that, as you said before, being resilient doesn't mean you don't get hurt. Doesn't mean it's not painful, okay? These results do not contradict the existence of pain and distress, but focus on the perception of the ability to meet life demands despite a sense of loss. Resilient participants in this study were able to appreciate their parents' ongoing parental responsibility functioning at the most stressful times of the divorce. They were able to see their parents struggle well, overcome obstacles, and go on to live and love fully. Okay, now I'm going to go a bit more into divorce, okay? Co-parenting is a key factor in raising mentally healthy children with resilience and good adaptation skills in modern reality, which requires parents to communicate constructively and reach agreements. As said before me, resilience can be taught, okay? Providing parents with tools and better parenting skills can enable them to function effectively as two parents for their children. However, this can be challenging in situations of conflict, particularly in cases of separation and divorce. Research studies have shown that relationships with parents can have long-lasting effects on their children, even up to 20 years after a divorce. I think in the collaborative community, we have collaborative lawyers and professionals here, I think, right? Okay. We tell parents, what do you want your grandkids to hear about your divorce from your parents? Okay, that's the long-lasting effect of the parents' divorce. And it's research-based. Research studies have shown that the relationship between the parents can have even up to 20 years, as I said, and the impact on divorce is a cumulative experience. It goes on and accumulates, which increase over time and can reach its peak when the children are adults, affecting their personality, trust, outlook on relationships, and ability to cope with changes. And what's the worst kind? High conflict divorce, which is my specialty. Divorce is a stressful major crisis or transition, which can be a source of numerous stress-inducing events and requires children's adjustment. Research studies have consistently demonstrated that the level of conflict between parents plays the most significant role in the impact of divorce on children. Higher levels of conflict are associated with greater negative effects on children. And the conclusion builds up, right? When family conflicts are met with a universal legal system, the consequences can be devastating. Adversarial litigation can be detrimental to parental relationship, their ability to communicate effectively, and their capacity to cooperate constructively. From my point of view, litigation in family dispute is inherently a structured conflict that does not align with the unique characteristics of family dynamics. Litigation is a process that focuses on the past, seeking to determine what happened and who did what and when. In contrast, family relationships are characterized by ongoing dynamics, interaction. Family conflicts have a history, a present, and a future. Family reality continues to evolve during and after the legal process. While a legal decision may be final and conclusive, this is not always the case when children are involved in a divorce. As I said before, divorce is an ongoing process. Do I have here family lawyers in the crowd? No, only you.
Yeah.
Maltese not in the crowd.
Here.
A few more?
Yes.
Okay. So, what I mean by family is ongoing, okay? Court decisions and litigation and procedure is always a step behind, and sometimes years behind, and life goes on. So that's the structure contrast that cannot really help you get anywhere if you want to be resilient.
But I want to also add, in Israel you also have to wait for the Rabbanut to get it.
Well, that's another lecture.
That's next.
I can do that, but I don't think we have the time. I can answer? Very short. Okay. In Israel, we have the mandate system. Okay? So, material law is the personal law, which means it goes by your religion. And we have a dual authority system. We have family court, which is civil, and we have the rabbinical court. The divorce, is only a religious divorce. You cannot get a divorce from the civil court if you're a Jew. If you're a Jew, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, each religious has his own court system in Israel. So most of the time people go to the family court and to the religious court. Sharia, Catholic Christian, rabbinical court. Okay? So it's much more complicated than that.
Atheist?
Doesn't matter. If you're a Jew, people get that mistake very often. If you're a Jew and you get married with another Jew in Cyprus, and you're an Israeli, and you want to get a divorce, you have to go to the rabbinical court. The family court cannot give you a divorce, because a divorce is a religious ceremony in Israel. Israel is a religious democracy. It's a Jewish democracy. Again, that's another lecture. I can go on. I teach university, you know. Got many lectures, so I'll go on. I'll go on, okay? So, in legal disputes, as you said, rabbinical court, the question of guilt is often central to the proceedings, with each party seeking to establish themselves as the victim and the other side as the aggressor. However, the reality of family conflicts is often more complex than a simple dichotomy of right and wrong. Yet the statement of claim or the statement of defense is characterized by accusation and emphasize weaknesses and shortcomings of the other side. In this way, the legal process, especially the first document submitted to the court, escalate the conflict. The ball starts to roll and the conflict continues to escalate. The result is mutual increased hostility that does not allow cooperation in matters concerning the children. The damaging impact of litigation and the understanding that family relationships resist beyond divorce have led policymakers in Israel to encourage parents to settle disputes without restoring to the legal system. And still, we must remember the importance of family ties in Israel. I got a bit of information published only this month about Israel population. You can read it. As it's shown on the slide, the population of Israel is very young. Okay, about 28% are children aged until 14, and about 12% aged 65 and over. And Israel, as I mentioned, Israeli society is typified by the centrality of family to the individual and to the society. Traditional family values, the memory of the Holocaust, the issue of national security promotes a view of the family as a protective factor. Social interaction are based on family groups and adults' self-perception, especially women's, is based on parenthood and familial relationship. And a bit about Milo, okay, as I call it, my baby out in the world. As I said before, an innovative Israeli law with a very long and unsexy name has been successful in achieving a significant reducing of adverse litigation in family conflicts by almost 50% since it was first implemented in 2016. The law is essentially a procedural law that changes the default of the public. Instead of opening legal process in family matters by filing a lawsuit, as was the legal situation in Israel before, with the entry into force of the law, preliminary procedures were added before filing lawsuits in family matters. And I will show you section 1 of the law, which says this law aims to help spouses and parents and their children to resolve a family conflict among themselves consciously and peacefully, and to reduce the need for conducting legal proceedings in consideration of all aspects of the conflict and best interests of every child. How does it work? Instead of opening the legal process in family matters by filing this lawsuit, as I said before, with the entry into force of the law, preliminary procedures are added before filing lawsuits in family matters. And I will show you the experimental notes, which I think is the essence. The law requires the litigant to resort to a process structured negotiation before submitting offensive lawsuits, which after the submission, the ability to continue to communicate and cooperate as parents is irreversibly damaged. Now, anyone wishing to file a motion on any aspect of family conflict first must submit a petition for dispute resolution, which I called a motion to settle. The motion does not include arguments or facts relating to the conflict. This is very important. It's something I was struggling about with my friends, lawyers, trying to convince me to add another word, to space it out, and I said, no way. Only your name, your ID number, where you live, and the same of your spouse, nothing else. Completely empty. So the motion does not include arguments or facts relating to the conflict. The petition forms only require identification details about the individuals concerned to establish optimal conditions for this dispute resolution procedures. And from a psychologist's point of view, I call this a law of timeout. Okay? Timeout is a very important tool in mediation, in negotiations, in education of children, okay? Timeout is a very strong tool. And after the motion to settle is submitted, there is a mandatory timeout. The purpose of the preliminary procedure is to create a period of timeout, to force the parties to stop and think before running to file a lawsuit. The next stage, following the submission of the form, is a stay of proceeding stage. That's the legal term, yes? During this period, running from 60 to 75 days, the parties are not allowed to initiate any legal proceedings unless these are very urgent matters of the greatest urgency. For example, if you're a Jewish woman and you need the get, and you're afraid your husband is going to leave the country, you can run for the rabbinical court and get a junction preventing him from leaving the country. Okay? The law will not prevent you from having that security. Okay, that was important to me to mention. But please note, it's not mandatory mediation. Okay? People are not forced into the mediation process. What is mandatory is, as I said before, is the timeout, a period of tough time that you cannot file a lawsuit. Another tool that we do in that period of time is the IFC meetings, information, formalization, and coordination. As I said before, anyone wishing to file a motion with the judicial court in the matter of a family dispute shall first submit a motion to settle. Then, over the next 60 days, the parties are invited to join meeting with a social worker. Okay? And the parties will be given information about the implication of the legal proceedings on their children, other ways to resolve family conflicts outside the court, and coping with conflicts from the family crisis, arising from the family crisis. At the IFC meetings, the family members sit together and try to talk without legal proceedings in the background, with the help of a professional mediator, a social worker from the state, only the parties themselves, without representing lawyers. They're not allowed in the room. This is an explanatory meeting that is meant to examine and evaluate the possibility of negotiations. Once they can see and feel that there is someone to talk to, this meeting can move them from a state of hell to a difficult but yet solvable situation. This setup is meant to give them hope about the feasibility of a dialogue as a necessary stage toward reaching a future agreement. To make a long story short, this new law was and still a big success. The purpose of the law is to reduce litigation in family matters. So I checked how many cases were submitted to the court since it came into force, and then compare this finding with the number of lawsuits submitted the years after. And you can see the result over here. The number of claims filed in the second year of the law implementation, you can see the number is 25,000, okay? And before it was 46, almost 37. I'm talking about the second year because on the first year we had a shock, okay? The numbers were much lower. We had a 75% drop in family cases. That wasn't normal, it was a state of shock. The public had to get acquainted and adjust to the new situations. Also the lawyers, they were very mad at me, all my colleagues. But then a year later, it's stabilized, and since then the numbers are the same. Okay, each year the government and the Knesset checks the government numbers. I was in a ministry committee for 7 years. Each year we check the numbers from the welfare ministry, from the court division, from the justice department, and the numbers stay the same. And it hasn't changed from that. So it was a big success for my part. But now it's difficult times. And I was asked to check what's going on since the war broke in the IFC meetings. And people are making researchers and trying to understand what's the outcome. And I say it's too soon to tell. Okay? Iron Swords is the longest war in the history of the State of Israel. The continuation of the state of war is very dramatic in its impact, but it's too early to assess how. In preparation for this symposium today, I have received data from the Ministry of Welfare in Israel. I wanted to know if the number of motions to settle decreased following the events of October 7th. From the answer I received, it appears that since last year, and since the outbreak of the war, there has been a certain decrease in the amount of new cases. But the following months, there was an increase in the monthly number of cases opened. So we had it was like the corona effect, okay? I don't know if people who do family matters, when the corona started, everything froze. People didn't get divorced. It was silent for a bit and then boom, okay? The same effect for the short run. For the long term, as I said before, I'm afraid we still don't know. That's the numbers. But I've asked also about the issues. Because numbers don't tell us everything, okay? It's only part of the story. And I was given information and examples of typical issues, as you can see here in the slides. There are difficulties in applying a parental plan due to anxieties about the security situation or lack of protection solutions. I don't know if you know that, but many apartments and many houses in Israel don't have a shelter, don't have a mamad, a safe room. Okay, I live in the center of Tel Aviv. There's no safe place for us because we live in very old buildings, 100 years old, no safe room, no shelter. So that's an issue. If the parents are separated or divorced, one parent have a shelter, the other one doesn't have a shelter. So when are the children going to be? Okay. Also, there are concerns of children going back and forth with alarms and sirens going on. Nowadays it's a bit easier, but in the beginning of the war, the sirens went on and off all the time. And when you're outside, it's very scary. Okay, you have to lay on the ground, put your hand over your head, and if you're traveling, you're in a car. So kids get anxieties over that, and that's an issue. Adjustment of parental plan when divorced parents are evacuees. Okay, I think you know that a lot of people in Israel in the north and in the south were evacuated. Some were self-evacuated and some were evacuated by the state. With people in state of divorce or separation, that's another issue. Staying in the same hotel, not staying in when the parents, yes, staying in the same hotel, not staying in the same city, not the same city. The desire of one of both parents to move away and change the place of residence after being evacuated or vacated from the south or north of Israel. So that's new issues. A parent's desire to immigrate or move for a significant period of time abroad. Again, a lot of cases when one parent is in a reserve service and the other parent is with the kids at home and she has a foreign citizenship and she wants to take the kids abroad for a while. After, I'll come back when things will be peaceful, okay? And you can see what the other side may think. Most people I know got an agreement on that, okay? I will talk about it later. Flexibility and adjustment for parental plan due to one parent or both parents in reserve service in the IDF. Okay? I pay child support, but I'm in reserve service. The child support was in consideration of the fact that children stays half the time with the father and half the time with the mother. But now father is gone, he's in a reserve service, and the children are at the mother's house all the time. So the math changes. What we do about that? Issues. Requests from grandparents to contact their grandchildren after their son or daughter was murdered on September 7th. Okay? I did it from bad to worse. Yeah, I'm finishing. I've got one more or two more examples of horrified things, and then we finish. Not really. The general impression of the Ministry of Welfare without being tested empirically, was that most parents are trying to come up with flexible and creative solutions, considering the difficult period. Most parents were able to reach agreed solutions while exercising flexibility, creativity, cooperation, and adaptation of parental agreements between them to the difficult times of war. As I said before, the state of war is ongoing. And in difficult times, family legal matters require a lot of flexibility and creativity from everyone, including lawyers. There are more sensitive issues of parenthood after death, given the demand of mothers and spouses of soldiers to use sperm of soldiers who died in the war. There are complex issues of children who remain orphan of a father and a mother, and the remaining family member, uncles, aunts, and grandparents, need to reach agreements on how and whom will raise them. There are issues of recognizing spouses as widows who did not have time to marry and whose spouse was killed in the war. There is a famous case of a same-sex couple who planned to marry soon after the war broke out, and one of them was killed. The remaining partner received recognition from the IDF and the Ministry of Defense, and now he is fighting to be able to perform surrogacy procedure with his partner's sperm. The day I left Israel, I received a very sad news about a death of a dear friend of mine. His son died in a battle. In the morning notice, it was announced that the family is sitting Shiva in 3 different places: the mother's house, the father's house, and the widow's house. The divorce dispute was so ugly that the parents were not able to do Shiva together on their son. So, we do not know yet what sensitive issues will arise if and when the young women kidnapped to Gaza return to Israel pregnant. These are complex moral and legal issues, and we don't know the end of it. Thank you for listening, and bless you all.